Well, hey, Jeric, it's so good to have you come on here today. And I am just absolutely thrilled. We've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah, we did.
Yep, when I lived in Pennsylvania, out towards Scranton and all those different places, that's where we met. And we were in the same circles for forever. It feels like we were in and
Hmm.
out of these circles, and I'd keep bumping
Yep.
into you and different things like that. And after just hearing your story, after seeing the changes and the shifts in you, I just thought it would be a great thing to just have you on here, knowing where you come from, knowing where we both came from, the different church backgrounds, all
Mhm.
of that. It should be quite an enlightening conversation. So, Jeric, why don't you just tell my audience just who you are, a little bit about you, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, my name is Jeric Cannon. I was one out of 11. I have 11 siblings. My parents were Christians. My mom became a Christian in the 1970s, um, and she started going to prayer meetings and different things like that. And yeah, and my parents were married 50 years. My mom passed away in 2018. My dad passed away in 2020. They were married, obviously a long time. And I was very influenced by my mom in her faith, and 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 that's that.
Okay. Well, all right. So you were raised in a Christian home. And let me ask you
Yep.
a question. Why so many children? I know sometimes in Christian households and different religious, they believe in having a quiver of children and many more children. What was
Hmm.
the deal? I mean, that's a lot of siblings.
Well, now you're bringing back memories, like just things
Sure.
like things just popped in my head since you asked that question. Um, Now going back, I remember growing up as a kid, and some reason I think my mom must have said it. Like I don't know, God got her pregnant. God wanted her having a baby or another baby. Not really got her pregnant, but like it was an idea I had in my head that God, it was weird. It doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying? Like I was a
I
kid.
do.
It kind of assumed, oh, God told her to have another kid, basically.
Okay. Okay.
So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So I know that you're involved also like in sports and activities and things like that. So before we get into where we're heading, tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about that. Where that all kind of came from, that love of sports, love of all of that.
Well, growing up, my dad really wasn't into sports. He liked football, the Blakely Bears, but he never was passionate about it. Now and then he would share stories and stuff. But I don't know if it was my older brothers that kind of liked sports. They're like the oldest 57, I'm 40. But I just, at a young age, I think it was like 7, 8 years old, I got into liking football, and that's the only thing I really liked. And then as I got into high school, I started running on my own. Running, we lived in the country, so I'd run on my own. I was kind of influenced um, by to run and stuff. Was actually watching Lakeland boys track and field team. They were very successful. The coach when he was there from
Mhm.
1983 to 2007, and like 25 years or something. He won like
Oh,
220 meets and only lost like 20 or 13.
oh my gosh.
And yeah, he was very good. And yeah, so we used to do physical fitness in gym class, and that was the only thing I liked from ninth grade to 12th grade was the 1 mile. And so I would run on my own, get better, and then my junior year I ran it. I got like a 6:13 for one
Okay.
mile, and yeah, and then a couple kids out in my class was like, "Oh, he only ran 3 times around the track," because we had a substitute teacher. When they ran 3 times around the track. I didn't. So I said, "Okay, I'll do it again." And I don't know why I had to prove a point, but I did. And I did it again and actually shaved almost 25 seconds off my time and ran 5:45. And that's when the track and field coach came up to me and said, "I heard you did this." And I had him as a teacher then, but
Sure.
I was at a track event when he came to me and he's like, "Would you want to run cross country?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then I did track and field team my senior year won the sixth straight district title. So that yeah, they were successful. Cross country was pretty decent, and but yeah, it really just my own, just loving sports and
Yeah.
basketball. I started like in baseball. It was when I was like 32. Slow pitch softball. I started playing in a church league up here, and then I took over as volunteer coach in 2016, and it was pretty interesting being a church lead. You think
I
you've
was
seen a lot.
wondering, you know what? I played in a church league, and I wonder if we
Yeah,
were in the same league because I
yeah,
played with Bob, Pastor Bob. So
yeah. It's probably the
I
same lead.
did you guys compete against us?
No, you guys weren't in the lead in 2016. They weren't that church. Teams come in and they leave, and
Yeah, we were terrible.
yeah,
Okay.
coaches are the worst. And being there 8 years and ready, seeing things and knowing things about Christianity, and I'm going back for abuse for the ninth year. I don't know how much longer I'll
Sure.
be in it. You really start to see things, the hypocrisy, hip, I can't even say it, hypocrisy or whatever, and really start to see their behaviors. They're worse than a beer lead. The
Mhm.
Christian coaches are worse
Mhm.
than people in a beer lead. I heard, and they are. They're like, and
Sure. Sure.
yeah, and then after a while you're like, yeah, this you guys are Christians, right? Just
Yeah.
because I win and I work hard and I'm passionate about it and I recruit, which you could too, and you do. It's just I'm a
Sure.
little bit better at it,
Hmm.
because I'm passionate about it. So they just don't like me. So I'm not very liked. Even new guys come and lead new churches.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah,
I love the whole idea that I'm going to say it again because I realized in
yeah,
case people missed it, but we've known each other for a long time, many
yeah,
years. Ran in the same church circles,
yep,
ran in the same ministry circles, ran at the same
hmm,
big, huge events. We were,
yeah,
at all of them. And so where I want to take this conversation is I want to hear your journey. I'd like to hear your journey just through Christendom and
hmm,
out of it and what you feel has led you out of it all, Jeric, because I know when I left, it was quite surprising. When people leave, it can be
hmm,
quite surprising. And sometimes people want to know why we did that. Why in the world
hmm.
did you leave after all these years? So shed some light.
So I'm going to kind of start from the beginning of some maybe key moments I remember growing up of things that's been said to me,
Mm,
maybe by my dad, my mom, and that might have caused some trauma, right? So so I remember a story. Well, one story was I was in the this was not trauma, but I was in the hospital. I think like excuse me, surgery or something. I was like 5, 6 years old. And I used to watch Jimmy Swagger on TV,
oh
some
yeah.
funny reason. Yeah. And so when I was in the hospital, I would put him on TV and the nurse would come in and she switched it back to cartoons. She'd leave, she'd come back in, Jimmy Swagger's on. And the nurse assumed it was my mom doing it, you know.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I used to watch it at home. I used to want to be just like Jimmy Swaggart, minus the prostitute it was with, Do you remember that story or no?
I remember all that story. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And the thing is, I had no interest in Christianity. Right around then, I think my mom didn't understand when I was a teenager. There's a possibility as a kid he wasn't on TV anymore, and I just didn't care. Like I was thinking about that. And so yeah, so I like that. I used to pray. Um, I remember as a child, I think it was around 5, 6, 7 years old. My sister shared this with me. I do remember a little bit. I would prayed for a sick dog who was dying or something. Prayed for an hour or two. Prayed for a cat, you know, and
Sure.
um,
Yep.
and yeah, they did die,
Hmm.
unfortunately. Um, Sometimes prayer doesn't work. No, but I know I'm laughing, but but yeah, I had a heart, for God and believing in, Jesus and stuff like that. And I had faith. So yeah, it was at a young age. And then it came to a point where, that, when I was a teenager, I just kind of didn't care about God of the Bible or Jesus anymore. And, so I just kind of got into sports and that's what kept me busy. But here's a thing I want to share of things that I think it could have been traumatizing. Like I remember when I was in sixth grade, I stole money from my dad, and then I came home and went to a book bag and he found out it was me. And then he was yelling at me, telling me that all liars are going to hell and thieves and all that.
Oh
And
gosh.
yeah, I understand probably was frustrating. I'm sure I have a son. Sometimes, he doesn't have to go through the religious trauma. I'm sure there's things we may say that he'll remember, but religiously, there's more scars behind it, I think. Um, so yeah, I always feared death since I was third grade. I remember I was afraid to die, um, and it was just this fear I had, and I don't know where it came from or how I got it, and I think most of my life it stuck with me even up to a year ago when before I left Christianity. I still had that, and now it's like I'm trying to get over that fear and just live for today. And so yeah, that was interesting. And then I have some notes here. But another key story was when I was in elementary school. My mom would always teach us on end times. The world is coming to an end. She didn't believe in pre-trib rapture; she believed in mid-trib rapture. So she kind of taught us that we might have to go through tribulation. Government's going to might take you guys away. You might have to die for Christ, get your head chopped off or something, And she used to store up food in the basement. Her and my dad. She did it for like 15 years, like cans, rice, for the end times, for when the government and all that takes over. And I remember when I was fifth or sixth grade, can't remember exact. um, I was talking to my twin sister, and I remember this, and I don't remember too much when I was young, but I remember telling her, I hope I make it in high school, at least seventh, eighth grade, before the world comes to an end. It was always, it could end any time. And that kind of took a future away from me. Like from then and then up to probably a couple of years before my mom died, in 2018 she died. You're always kind of preparing that, like, okay, well, it's going to come to an end times could start anytime. And but it really was more traumatizing as a kid, not as much into my adulthood, but as a kid, because I didn't see a future as far as I was concerned,
Right.
that Jesus could return anytime, tribulation could start. So I didn't even know if I was going to graduate high school. I actually didn't think I would. My younger sister, asked me actually this week. She's not a Christian or whatever. She's 37 years old. She turned 37 yesterday. Did you really believe that? I'm like, I'm not going to say I really believed it, but you trust your parents, right? You trust what your parents are telling you and your mom. And so I think I did believe it. I think I did. Um, Unfortunately. And it traumatized me because, again, I didn't study in school. I didn't take high school too serious. My parents didn't really care about school too much. When I was, they were very negative about school and college, and they were Christians. If you know where I'm coming from, they almost view it as like the devil or whatever. Yeah, you got my point. And so they weren't motivating me to do well. And yeah, I didn't care. But as far as I was concerned, if everything's going to come to an end soon, why bother studying and planning for your future and all that? And
Exactly. Yep. I want to jump in here with something like that because you're touching on something I think that's important. It takes you completely out of the present moment because you are always waiting for the future hope. We're always waiting for the white horse to ride in and save the day, and we're all going to go up, and we're going to be doing that. And it explained for me when I went through my deconstruction process, it started to explain to me why I felt a lot of different churches I went to or different ministries I was in didn't care about the earth. Because why would they care about the earth? Because the earth's going to blow up anyway. It's going to be like this ball of fire, and it doesn't really matter. And they wouldn't get involved with a lot of stuff related to the earth because they thought that it was worshiping the earth and you were, misplacing it for the creator and, this, that, and the other. And the only thing to focus on was the winning of souls. And the winning of souls was the winning of people. It didn't matter if the trees were cut down, didn't matter if the dogs were dying, it didn't matter whatever. What mattered was people and souls only. And I believe some of that mentality, some of that
Mhm.
ways of thinking have come from what you're talking about. You know, Jesus is going to come back. We're going to look for the, you know, the hope to come in. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have a good point. I noticed that just, when I kind of left my faith last year, same thing. Christians don't focus on the earth. They don't focus on, let's say, global warming. They don't take care of the earth. And there's a lot of things Christians don't take care of or care about that they should. They don't probably don't care how people feel. The definite, feelings still matters. Your soul that matters, and just keeping people out of hell, right? It's more important than somebody's feelings or their trauma. It's all about the afterlife. You know, that's the mentality, and yeah, that's definitely a good point. I mean, um, so there's like let me share another story. This is
Sure
kind of
thing.
me telling on myself.
Oh, no, you're
um,
good. You're good. This is all about you. So,
but yeah, when I was in high school, this is kind of funny actually. Um, my parents just got a computer. It was like mid '90s. It was my older brothers bought it for them. I'm one of my older brothers, and they got cable too. There's my one brother, two of my brothers, three of my brothers are very successful, and they bought them a computer, cable. We got right around the same time. They were paying for some of the cable, and um, so yeah, that's something that was traumatizing was sex, right? As in
sure.
Christian community, they're obsessed with sex, so that was kind of planted in me. Sex is bad. Sex, you do this, you do that. It's of the devil, and you feel what condemned or whatever, and
Mm, mm.
guilty. So at some point, I think it was like I don't know if I was in seventh, eighth grade. Kind of sound there, not perverted, not bad, but I remember waking up. Like I woke up a couple of times and I put midnight, like put TV on, right, and I put like find a dirty show, watch naked girls or something. you know, Something like that. And then I went on the computer. I went on porn. And it was like seventh, eighth grade, and my dad's whenever my porn's popping up ads, and they blamed me like they thought it was me. I lied, it wasn't me. I said, but I mean, it's interesting. And why share this story? I'm telling on myself. Yeah, I was young, young kid,
Yeah,
and you have hormones going crazy as a
sure you
teenager,
do.
but the thing is, there's trauma involved there because I'm a kid. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but the way Christians go about it, they make you feel like it's the worst. You're the worst person, right? It's
Mm,
evil. It's sinful. It's the devil. For doing that, you're gonna go to hell if you really took by looking at porn or looking at naked woman not being married, right? There's a lot of condemnation, attached to that, and a lot of hurts, and that affected me growing up. And I've heard many stories, deconstruction stories, of people who went through similar things where even when they got married, they could not have a healthy sex life with their
mhm,
spouse because of
mhm.
that trauma. And that affected me in my early 20s. I was not even a Christian, I wasn't really saved the first few years of my early 20s. And I was in the bars and clubs,
Sure.
drinking and partying, trying to meet girls and make our girls. And I was still a virgin was always too drunk to do anything. But I was shy and all that too. But the biggest thing that pinpoints this in back of my head was sex is evil, and I wasn't even saved. I wasn't even
Mhm,
reading the Bible. It was evil.
mhm,
If I
mhm.
have sex and I
Yes.
died afterwards, and I didn't even believe in Jesus so much to save me. I didn't know that message. I just viewed God as you do something wrong or you sin, he's going to judge you. Even though I wasn't a Christian, I still kind of felt like God's still going to judge me, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that was the fear behind. Like if I go have sex with this girl and I died, I'm going to go to hell. As again, I was afraid. Was it already feared death most of my life?
Yep.
Didn't know what was going to happen after I die.
Yes.
And our message was sends you to hell. God's out to judge you. God's out to make bad things happen when you disobey him. That was the version of God I knew
Mhm.
and known. And yeah, so yeah, even then and then when I got became a Christian, I found myself in 2008 similar patterns. Again, sex is bad, and I went on dates, and more you think about it, it kind of makes it do say and do stupid things. Just make yourself righteous when you're on a date with a girl. And then you wonder why I went on like 8, 10 dates sometimes, and some Christian girls, and they just weren't interested. Some girls were shocked I was single. Like, I can't believe you're single. And again, I didn't know back in 2010, 2014 or whatever. I met my wife in 2014, that there was a lot of hurt there, a lot of fear, a lot of trauma, a lot of insecurity, a lot of bad thinking and wrong beliefs and things that's been drilled in me that affected me. And I think in America, and I'm sure you know this already, they're obsessed with sexual sins. So all about sex, sex, and they make it. I learned that they almost make it like, if you just don't commit a sexual sin, God's gonna be happy with you. You're gonna be right. You're righteous, and you're obeying God, and you're closer to God. But then when you look throughout the Bible, I've learned about a year or two ago, there's over 1,600 laws and commands alone, 1,000 or so laws and commands in the New Testament alone. So if you're reading it, after a while, just before I deconstructed, I began to realize this is bullshit. Um, People build their own versions of their God. I say everyone has their version of their God, right? They pick here, they pick there, they pick there. My God hates the LGBT community. That's my siblings' God. Some of them, they can't stand that community. But they're like my sister-in-law said a couple of weeks ago on my Facebook, "Oh, I have gay friends. Like, it's my side of the family now, not my wife. My side. Oh, I have gay neighbor, but I love them. They're going to hell. Their God. So their God sends gays to hell. Now their version of God that they built up, Jesus didn't die for the gays, right? So they have their own Jesus too, right? Because their Jesus didn't die for the LGBT community, but they died for their sins, and their 1,000+ sins they choose not to follow, right? They don't follow things in the Bible. There's 1,000+ laws and commands in the Bible, just as equal as the commandments and sexual sins, right? And I say that not that they would follow it, because we couldn't follow it, but I bring that up is because as they're pinpointing, thinking they're righteous and they're doing good, right? And they're not sinning against God, they choose to ignore that there's 1,000 laws and commands within the New Testament. You kind of catching where I'm drifting?
Oh, I'm right there. Yep.
Yeah. And it's just bad. So I've learned that Christians build their own version of God, and they have their own Jesus. And thank God, Yeah, I would say thank God.
That's okay. You're okay.
I thank God that I'm not a Christian anymore, because it was very horrible. I was a horrible person as a Christian. Not as bad as some of them are, my siblings, but I was not very nice. I was more loving the last couple of years. But yeah, it's yeah. If you want to cut in, I have more.
I will. I want to talk. About this whole thing of purity culture, because I don't know if you were in the same church I was, but there was a church that I went to where we all took the ring. And we had to wear this ring to say that we were going to be, basically cast all the way till marriage. And almost everybody that took the ring had already had sex. So it was kind of like, so then it was kind of like, okay, what do you do now? And that was where we were taught about secondary virginity. I don't know if you remember this teaching. Do you remember this teaching?
No, I never really was involved. Like, my mom stopped going to the church in the 90s.
Oh, okay. Well, we had this thing called secondary virginity, so that if you took the ring, then you would be forgiven of all the sins of any sexual immorality whatsoever, and you now could call yourself a virgin again, because now it's a secondary version, like as though and the people and everybody standing up there, it's as though we were all kind of like we're secondhand virgins. Like, this is what you call a secondhand virgin, and I think purity culture in itself is extremely damaging, Jeric. I think it is something that takes away from natural
Yep.
inclinations that are happening with people. We have hormones, okay? It's as simple as that. It is what it is. And I remember when I was a youth leader, and I was, it was explained to me that, you need to make sure all the girls are dressing correctly because, they're going to seduce the boys, and, and the girls had to sit with the girls and the boys had to sit with the boys. And the more you start putting these laws, I call them, into place, which are very man-made, very just kind of the preference of pastors, the preference of a certain theology, like you said, people believe. The minute you start putting those laws in place, it will increase the desire that they're not wanting to have. And there actually is this spiritual law, it says the more you resist something, the more it will persist. And so it didn't matter how many things you were trying to put in place. And, I'm like, God, I kept going to the altar, trying to, pray away being gay. Then I was, everything under the sun. And I'm just sharing a little bit to just echo your story, that it brings condemnation. It brings a repetitive feeling of guilt. And then you actually feel like inside yourself, oh my gosh, I'm like terrible. I'm not worth anything. And I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to go before God. In fact, I'm not worthy to have a relationship. Oh my God, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And it just breeds this I'm not worthy everywhere. And that is extremely traumatic for people, extremely traumatic for children, extremely traumatic for adults, to be told that these inclinations, these human things, we are human, we are sexual beings, is evil and wrong, and God's waiting to judge it, is very, very damaging. And I just wanted to echo your story and just say to you, I hear you. I'm so sorry you went through that. There's nothing about that that was right, Jeric. There was nothing about that was pure and holy and sacred. You were put into boxes where you were not even allowed to even explore or anything. And so then what do? You explore in all sorts of weird ways and different ways, and maybe ways that are unhelpful to you because of all of that.
Yeah, definitely. You have a good point. I've learned, kind of off topic, is that a lot of these some pastors are pushing things on people. I did some research that there's a lot of pastors that watch porn. A lot of pastors telling people what to do, not to do, why they're going home in their secret life. And again, not judging them, but who are they to, condemn other people and try to put these laws in place and rules. And they do that. And go back to what you said. Um, what right there is what they were doing is they were building with Jesus and putting him on the altar, right? That makes sense.
Sure.
Because again, just sexual sins. That's what they obsess with, focus on. You think you teach people how to love others, not judge others, um, accept people who are different than you or believe differently than you, and try to instill those things in people where they could pretend to say they have Jesus living in them, right? And but they don't do that. So I'm going to go to my next, step. So the way I became a Christian kind of was in 2000. Well, this led to it. 2000 October 2006, I was pulled over, got a DUI. Then in July 2008, I almost had a second DUI. Never was charged with it because the cop did something illegal. They like searched my car or something. I assumed, without a warrant. So then I decided, okay, my life is a mess. I'm 25 years old. I'm going to try God. That was in my head. Try God, see if he has any plans for me and could take control of my life somehow. So about a month later, I went to Peckford Assembly of God Church, and I got baptized. I didn't tell any of my family, nothing like that. It was just my own personal thing I did. And it's funny, years later, a couple years later, whatever, I got condemned for that by my family for not telling them. Isn't that, that's, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
So I decided to go to ministry school there. They were doing having the global university. They were teaching it inside the church through global university, Assemblies of God. So at the time I was laid off from my job. Like it was the came back, not came back. Sinram that was here. They laid off about 200 people in 2009, and I was one of them. So I didn't have much money, and this is kind of a key point that led to many key points throughout my story and journey. So I paid for the schooling. I think it was like $1,000. It would come up with the money first semester. The second semester, um, I didn't really have the money, again, and I owed, I don't know, might have been like $500. So I finished the year. It was a year, and I found out maybe 2 years later that they never really, they didn't send my change script in the church because I didn't pay them the rest of the money. And at the time, I was very naive. I wasn't very educated in 2009. I was 25. You figure I grew up in a Christian home. My parents never really taught us how to take care of us. They tried to. My dad did. But it was a very um, depressing. It was just like, I don't know how to explain it. I just wasn't in reality, if that makes
Mm.
sense too.
Mm.
But I'm thinking, okay, I got saved. They care about souls and people not going to hell, um, and that's what they care about, and that's what should be important if hell is real, right? And I think I just was reading on that book, Revelation of Hell, too, around then too.
Oh, I was reading that book. Yep.
I don't believe it now.
No,
I
no, I
said
don't
she
either.
lied. She lied.
No.
She lied.
At the time, though, I totally believed
I
it.
did too. Me too.
Oh my
Me too.
God. Yes, yes.
So they didn't put the change script in or whatever to the Assemblies of God. So I never got certified, even though I kind of finished this, course at the church. And so what got me kind of, and I didn't have good credit either at the time. Now I do. Is certain what I was trying to make a connection here. I was trying to figure out in my own head. Okay, you're Christians. You believe in Jesus. There's a hell. You want to save souls, and you don't want people going to hell. The time I either burn my brain, I'm thinking, shouldn't you kind of forgive me with the money I owed you and let me be a minister and preach, and that's what I was passionate about. Even the Assemblies of God, I don't have good credit. I get it, but no, I don't get it because but they're still trying to save souls. So what's credit if you're trying to save souls? And those
Mm.
are important. In my that I had. So that was something that just didn't make sense to me. I don't know if you're following me. That was just one thing where here you have this. My reality at the time was souls are so important. Shouldn't you let some of these things slide? But if we're all heavily minded, and that was just one thing that led to another. So I'm going to go to the next step. Is 2010, Dion Hockey. I don't even know who he is. He was at Peck
Yes. Oh,
from Africa,
yes. Yes, yes.
another con artist.
I'm
Um,
following.
yeah, he was at the church, Breakfast in the God Church, and I got into these revivals, and I was always a skeptic, kind of. I don't know why. But I just didn't easily believe some people. I needed the evidence, especially in the Christian community. He claimed to heal people, so there was this one guy that was at the church, and I was actually watching on live stream because I didn't go to that service. And he was, I remember the guy, he had like white hair, older guy and heavier, and he got healed from cancer that night. And then you never seen the guy again. So I'm thinking, trying to make connections. If I was healed from cancer, wouldn't you go back to the church that you were healed from if it was real? No, he didn't. So I never believed he got healed. Um, and so that's was start of another step, which led to 2012. I bought a book.
Can I ask you a question? Did you
Yeah,
find out whether or not he was healed or not? Did you
no,
discover
never
anything?
was. No evidence, no
No.
proof.
Okay.
So he just disappeared. And I'm going to get into more details. I mean, I could be a faith healer. I know all the tricks. I really do. I just don't have the guts, and I would never do it. Unfortunately, people
I'm
didn't realize
understanding.
I know everything. I know I spent a lot of time watching, but share some brief things. 2012, I bought a book called Faith Healers from. It was written by James Randi. He was like a skeptic. He wasn't
Mhm.
spiritual. He actually passed away a couple of years ago. He's older, and he investigated Peter Popoff in the late '80s. He went in there, yeah, like he put his own actors in, even brought like
I
a lady
remember
dressed up.
this. Yes.
Yeah, that was him. And yeah, so that story, and it was all fraud. He had his wife, he had an earpiece in, his wife was speaking to him in his earpiece, and so that was, and he was pretending it was God speaking to him when it was his wife.
Mhm.
So I learned that kind of in that book, and he shared a lot of different other stories where he investigated these faith healers who claimed that gold teeth was growing in, or their the prayer card notes and all that. It's all thrown in garbage in the back. So I'm not going to get into every detail, but it's a lot of deception going on in faith healing industry, a lot, and I ain't going to share it all.
No, that's
It's
okay.
really
You don't need to share it all, but I want to
yeah,
ask you a question.
right,
Do you believe, now you said, the faith healing industry,
yeah.
do you believe that faith healing works? Do you believe that people can have faith and experience healing?
Um, now I personally don't. I think is there's a word, is a hypnosis, maybe the correct word, where you could have the strong faith and you think you're healed, or you think your back pain went away, but it really is a lot of adrenaline and the hype, you know, filling up, and you think you're healed, or you think your back pain went away, or this went away. Especially when you go up and being prayed for, right? And it's like you're in front of the audience. You think you're gonna say no, I'm not healed. No, you're not gonna. You're gonna force you to say yes, right? If you're in public and people are watching you.
Well, see, it's interesting. It's interesting we're having this discussion because I do agree that there is a lot of emotionalism
Yeah.
around healing. I remember I would go forward to have my right ear healed, and everybody would pray everything under the sun. I think I had a demon of deafness, then I had this, then I had this, and then I had this. Okay, my ear has yet to be healed. It's never been healed. But
Yeah.
I do have areas in my life that have had supernatural healings
Yeah.
that did happen in church services. And they were not emotional
Mhm.
hype, and they are, tested and tried and remain true to all of that. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering if, yes, there are a lot of charlatans,
Mhm.
and I would say that
Yeah.
there's probably more charlatans than there are a lot of the real deal. And you're right that people won't say that they're
Mhm.
not healed. I didn't say I wasn't healed. You don't want to look like the only one not healed, but I still want to, I'm just going to encourage
Mhm.
you to not totally discount all of
Yeah.
faith healing, because I can say I've had testimonies
Mhm.
of it. Now, have I been under bad healers? Absolutely. Have I seen bad examples? Absolutely, as we all have. But I think we can have some balance in this too, that not everybody's story
Mhm.
is be that everybody was a charlatan. If you know what I'm
I think
what
I know where you're coming from, because there is power in the brain. There definitely is power with thinking and brain, right?
Oh yeah, we can change
Yeah.
things. Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
believe that could happen. But as far as them praying for you physically, like faith, there's power in just having faith that you could do something.
Sure.
I do the softball every year. I mean, 2 years ago, the year I won the championship in the league, I bought it. I bought my own championship plaque 3 weeks before. The other team we were playing found out they didn't like me anyways. So, like Andy and Monarch, was it Andy Monarchik? I don't know if you know who he is or not.
No, I don't.
They didn't like me anyways, but I just had faith that we're gonna win it anyways. I just spent
Sure.
$35. So there is power in faith. There is power in positive thinking. I think that's where you're coming from. But as far as the faith healer alone, people like that, it's not so much coming from them, and especially in some things they claim. So maybe I'm just more pinpointing on them, not the person alone, maybe,
Okay, that's
but
fine.
definitely on
Sure.
them. Yeah, because a lot of them are, some of them are sincere. Those little guys just praying, but a lot of them set up like a studio type thing, like
Oh, I
with a
know.
camera. It's all
Yeah,
an act.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go to the next step, because I'm
Sure.
sure we're running out of time. So I've learned about this guy, Marjo Gartner. You probably never heard of him. um, he in 1948, his parents were evangelists. 1948, he was 4 years old. I read it in this book. 4 years old, and his parents would teach him sermons, to teach him to do this, and his mom would like move her this to amen, and he would know to go to the next step. And and he was preaching, which there was no law then. So I could send you some of the articles I found yesterday, actually, on newspaper.com of him. So he was preaching, blah blah blah, and he was like got in churches and stuff. It was really about really about bringing in money. Okay, that's the end goal, not Jesus. Jesus is used to bring in money in a lot of these circles.
No, you've got to be kidding. No, that's not true. Go
So
ahead.
teenage years, he he lived with a girl. He came, I think it was early 20s. He went back in the ministry, and I think it was his last few crusades or whatever, revival services, 1972. He decided to do a documentary, basically expose himself as a fraud and all that charlatan and stuff like that. And basically, I have it. I bought it maybe 8 years ago, and when I was a Christian, the documentary is about an hour and a half. Some of it is on actually online. You can find on YouTube, and and he shared a lot of the tricks and tactics and this and this. So I've learned a lot about the faith healer. Like I said, the faith healers, pastors, evangelists. I'm pointing to, you know, about the tricks and con things and everything they do and their schemes. They're bringing actors. I've learned they're bringing their own people that are actors and they're pretend they're a random person. They're have people walking around, like in the coffee area maybe, just talking to people, getting information from people
Sure.
and things that are wrong, and they bring it to the pastor. Like this has been going on for years and years of
yes.
prayer cards, and they pretend they have revelation from God, and then the code readings. Like the way psychics do it. Oh, I think something read, or somebody's name is Alling. They kind of throw things out there and see if you're catching. And they know how to do it, and it's deceitful. And I've learned every trick, and I was obsessed with stuff for years, figuring them out, and I figured them all out. So yeah, that do that, and then so that was always okay. This is going on here. Another key point. Then I've learned in 2012 about the Clergy Project, where there's a lot of people that are still in ministry, and they no longer believe, and they preached for years as an atheist because it is a job.
Right.
And then you go back to probably your circle when you were a Christian. They were tired. Don't touch the anointing.
Oh, all the
So,
time.
and I'm thinking the anointing, but if there's atheists behind a pulpit, are they anointed? You know what I mean? Like in my head, I'm thinking, no, they're not. So how do we know who's real and who's not? So these were things that was going in my head, brain, or whatever, trying to figure it out and make sense out of this in Christian faith.
Sure.
So yeah, that was there, and I just went on researching for a couple of years. I kind of thought the Bible was reliable. I believed it for several years, and then the next step was in 2020. I know we'll wrap it up soon, right? But 2020,
just keep going, Jeric.
2020, I am guilty as like not liking the LGBT community when I was a Christian.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with Christianity. It was basically what you're almost raised up under in the negativity and sex, and so you become a Christian, and now you could justify it, right? So because I already had those, they just were different. It was disgusting, and I was always weirded out by that, and so so in 2020 I decided to do some research to prove that they could change. So I did a little bit. I added people on my Facebook, and I didn't do too much research. I kind of jumped into 2 or 3 years later, listening to a lot of podcasts with people who were Christians, like last winter, and I've listened to the stories where they try to change and they can't change. Then I learned about what's the guy's name, Alan Chambers. Yeah, you know of him. And he came out and said nobody changed, as we spoke before. And so yeah, after all that, it's like that's where my deconstruction really started to begin, because I heard about the German Bible written in the 1800s that said boy molesters won't inherit heaven. So I'm like, okay, America, it says homosexuals won't inherit heaven. So that kind of was like, this is bullshit. And I started deconstruct last May. But since I deconstructed, what kind of went on is interesting is I mean, there are so much others. I'm not going to get into things I've seen. Well, I'll share it briefly. I learned about church history last year, right before my deconstruction. I learned that white Christian men weren't not all they weren't all Christians, but some, and they killed Indians for a couple hundred years for their land, and they believed that God gave them this land, so they justified it. I learned about slavery in the South, America, in the South. They believed in having slaves, Christians did, and whatever twisted reason. And so Christians supported slavery. And not only do they support slavery, Southern Baptist Convention was formed in the mid 1800s to basically fight and help the Christians keep their slaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. So as you look back to church history, all the massacres, all the killings, like John Calvin, I heard, had people killed who believed different than him. Did you want to cut in?
No, keep going. I'm just listening.
So as I started seeing all this and behaviors of Christians, and they could justify everything they want. They could blame a devil. They could say somebody is not truly Christian. No, they're a Christian and they believe what they believe. Because you go across the whole Christian circles, a lot of them aren't very nice people, and they're miserable too. You know, so there's a lot to it that I started realizing last year. Maybe Christians really don't have this Holy Spirit that claim that God is in them. God is this. Then if you go to the Bible, Galatians 5 says if basically you're a Christian, you should have this, like meekness, love, blah, blah, blah. So as you examine Christians and the behaviors, I learned and determined that Christians don't have the Holy Spirit. And it was hard to kind of admit that. It may sound blasphemy to some Christians, but they don't. Because if you have powerful God living in you, they claim that built and created the earth, right? That rose from the dead. Shouldn't you, like, I know I sound like I'm preaching, but I'm not, I promise. But shouldn't you actually be way, way different than like every full of love, kindness, grace, and not killing somebody, not hurting somebody? And yeah, you kind of should, because if there's a powerful God in you. So I determined Christians don't have the Holy Spirit, and that was that. And I'm gonna probably wrap this up quick, and then if you have questions. So when I left Christianity, my twin sister found out. My other siblings found out we're Christians. You know, back in September, my twin sister told me basically I'm going to hell. I'm full of demons. I'm demon possessed. Um, my gay friend, because I have a gay friend poster on my Facebook. She's the most awesome girl. She went to evangelical colleges and stuff, played sports. Most awesome girl. She loves sports like I do. Oh, she's going to hell. My wife's friend, who's gay, he's going to hell too. So they start throwing that at you, and they were more bitter and nasty than I was. And then my other brother was saying stuff. My two brothers cut me off, older brothers, blocked me on Facebook, blocked from their phone. I cut three of my siblings off because they were just nasty. Went on my Facebook in December, bashing me. Say I'm going to hell, I'm demon this and that. And they weren't very nice. And my one sister, she's 2 years older than me. She actually had girlfriends in the past. She lives with an older guy now, and she's like bashing me as she's not even married, and she doesn't even go to church really, and she just throws on the form of Christianity now and then to pretend whatever. And so I blocked her, and yeah, she is. She admitted to me a month ago, I had girlfriends, and this, and so she's probably gay. Who knows? And bi. I don't know what she is, but she's nasty to me too. She thinks I'm bashing my parents. They think I'm doing this against my parents because what we went through growing up. and there's all these lies being spread around, and they're not. And I just cut them off. I cut them all off. I'm moving on. Me and my wife don't want much to do with them. They're just
Mhm.
not nice people. They're not nice at all. They gossip a lot. Two of
Mhm.
my siblings. They claim, God speaks to my one twin sister. Yeah. Well, God
So
should tell her to stop gossiping.
so let me ask you a question, Jeric, because you're sharing things that I think a lot of people have experienced. People have experienced isolation and rejection
Mm-hmm.
from family, have
Mm-hmm.
received bashing. I've had my own share of real misunderstandings with the whole process and all of that. So, what have you done to experience areas of healing? Because we can carry this stuff around, all the shit that's happened right in our lives, we can like carry it all around with us, and we can become bitter with it. And I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, I was bordering bitter for quite a while, and I kind of had to be bitter for a while. But
Mm-hmm.
then you realize that's not serving you at the end of the day. You obviously have learned different ways of love and have learned
Mm-hmm.
different ways of compassion. So, what has the restoration process looked like for you? How have you restored yourself after experiencing some of these things? What have you been doing
It,
with that?
actually, nothing really. It's been hard. Like I started drinking a little bit more. I used to have beer now and then, like over the last like 2 months, and trying to really cut back. Nothing really. I'm just trying to forget about the past and realize that people just aren't good people, and maybe I don't need them in my life. Maybe if they can't be nice and stuff like that, and I'm hoping I could just move forward because
Mhm.
I don't know how I could. How do you heal? Like 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 if I went to a counselor, I don't know if they would really help except self talk. Maybe self talk could help me in
Times.
time in
I
time.
I think it's different for everybody. I think I think some people don't need to go to anybody. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes people come to me for different things. Then that's not me saying come to me. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there are people who do offer services out there
Mhm.
to help people move forward in their journes. Because the last thing I want to ever see any of us who've gone through deconstruction, you,
Mhm.
me, all of us, is that bitterness, that pain that can sit in the heart when you're
Mhm.
sharing your story, that pain that can sit in the heart, for decades and decades and decades. And that, to me is where we don't want to be going when we've
No.
ended deconstruction, because then we're just kind of jumping on the exact same the same wagon as we've experienced. And so I guess I just was just checking to see, what have you done, to kind of like get past some of that,
Mhm.
because it is hard, it is challenging, it just is.
Yeah, it
When
is.
people are rejecting you, isolating you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a lot of it's through misunderstanding and their own
Mhm.
programming, they just
Mhm.
cannot see
Let
it.
go.
They can't
And
see
let
it.
go.
It can be definitely challenging. So I have a couple questions
All
before we
right.
wrap this up. So where are you at now with God? So if you were to say, um, this is how I see God, who's God? What's God? It's God. What is that now to you?
um. Right now, Um. I believe that God exists. I still hold to that. I still think people had some kind of near death experiences. I don't believe every one of them, maybe a few. Um, but I think he's a God of love. I think there's something more out there, that's for sure. If it's on another planet, if it's something, there is. Am I unsure right now? Of course I am, because you believe majority of your life. I'm 40 years old. Almost all your life, you believed in this, and this, and then now you find out you're wrong. Was wrong believing in something that's wrong. So yeah, I'm unsure, but I do believe there's something more. It just I think it's safe to say I'm unsure right now, and I
Sure,
don't know. Since I just left Christianity,
sure, sure.
it's hard to go put like something on something when you're unsure after you just left something.
Right, right, exactly. And I think that that's a process for everybody. Everybody, comes to that, whatever their conclusion
Hmm.
is. with it. So where are you at with Jesus? You know, I was going to ask this question. What do you think about Jesus?
Um, well, I was trying to attach myself to universalism, which I
Okay.
actually have two people coming on my podcast. They wrote books. One's a pastor; he's a universalist, in April. But I kind of figure that either if Jesus did exist or didn't exist, I really don't know at this point. I think everybody eventually worked their way to this heaven, even if there's like a purgatory or something. I don't know, where like Jews believe. Um, I'm fine with that. So I really don't really put much faith in Jesus. I've been learning about how Christianity kind of evolved and came from, and the Catholic Church, and
Sure.
the power
Oh.
structure.
Yes. Oh, we won't
And
even talk about the Catholic Church. Oh my gosh, the corruption. Oh my
uh,
goodness. I'm not
and
trying
it
to
got
offend anybody, but yes. Oh, oh my God.
and it and what's also awesome is I've been supporting Holy Cross High School here. Like the coach is my fourth cousin I learned, and basketball. I mean, watching, and I don't have to hate them
No,
now.
not at all.
Catholics are told to be like my mom hated Catholic
Oh
Church.
my
My
goodness.
siblings don't like the Catholic Church, and then you share. My mom's dead, but my siblings, you share that the Catholic Church is responsible for the Bible, and they ignore you. They don't believe it.
Sure, sure.
you know so
Mhm,
yeah, I don't have to hate them. I don't have to hate the Catholics. I don't have to. I feel free now. I could
mhm.
love, be kind to everybody now, even Muslims, people who left the Muslim faith. I go online, I'll talk to them, or even if
Mhm.
I won't trust them. I
Sure.
won't trust going to Iraq yet, but
Sure, sure.
yeah, you know what I mean. But
So if you could say one final thing to people who are questioning their faith, because there are a lot of people questioning their faith. There's more people questioning their faith than there are people coming to faith. And that is something that many polls have shown. There is a huge, massive exodus from the church, exodus from Christianity. There's a lot of that happening. So what would you say, Jeric, to somebody who is questioning their faith because you've had your own set of questions as well? What would you say to them?
well, it's not. It's. I mean, you can never talk somebody out of their faith. But my advice is, if you're seeing, if things ain't making sense for you, number one, look for the evidence. I'm a very evidence person. It's like when I went to that, I heard about German Bible. It was written in the 1800s. For me, at least, this was a key point for me. I said I'm going to spend money on that Bible, got the evidence in my hands. I know I already believed that it existed, but
Sure,
I said I'm going to buy that. I wasted $55 on it,
sure.
just for that, and it was a lifesaver basically. So that was the evidence. So look for evidence, follow where the evidence leads, and make sure it's good evidence. Don't it's okay to be spiritual and believe in things, but that's your personal faith. Don't have somebody else's faith basically, but follow the evidence. If you see things that making sense, most likely it's not, like for myself. And one thing I've done is when I started questioning my faith, and I encourage this on every one of my podcasts when they share their story, to find things like this, like Elling's page, um, YouTube channels where people are sharing their story and sharing their deconstruction story. Because for me, I heard a lot of them between on my podcast and the ones I listen to on the internet. During my deconstruction, it was cool to see that I was not alone.
Oh, yes.
It was, yeah, it was a lot of like you were hurting still, but it was like you're able to relate to their stories,
Mhm.
and you're like, yeah, that's how I felt. You felt that you went through a similar thing. You in times or so once you learn that you're not alone, and there's hundreds out there that went through a similar process that you did, and growing up under a similar household you did, in the environment you did, and was told the same things that you were told, and if it was the purity culture, if it was, you name it, even molestations. There's a lot of Baptist pastors, independent Baptist churches that's been caught. There's hundreds of them molesting teenagers that they're now coming out years later. So that's a healing process to know that there are people now connecting with each other online that's gone through that. And it's really brought some maybe um, comfort, I guess that's the correct word, when
Mhm.
you're seeing that you're not alone. So I definitely encourage watch Elling's podcasts. I have my own Agape Freedom podcast, and there's many out there, and we're not in no competition with each other. Of course, I want to grow my page and subscriptions and stuff like that, but everybody, this whole community, it's important,
Mhm.
and it's been awesome for me to know people like Elling and many other people have gone through what I went through, and I could relate, and they could relate. So yeah, thank you for having me on here. I think.
Yeah, sure, Jeric. I just want to just encourage you as you continue on in your journey and all of that. That you just keep going deeper into an understanding for you that works, honestly. I think it'd be so nice if all of our family was like on board and everybody
Yeah.
was like in agreement and but that contrast, the contrast that we have in our lives, you have in yours, is what has caused you to dive deeper.
Hmm.
The things that you saw that were not measuring up right, and things just weren't, it was wrong, caused you to dig deeper. And so I
Yeah.
just encourage you to keep digging deeper, keep
Thank you.
reading, keep researching, keep talking to people, keep doing all of it, because you're on to something. You're on to an evolution of your soul that is
Thank you.
really, really powerful, really altering everything, life changing. You are more present than I've ever seen you be present, to be
Hmm.
honest, in areas. You're loving life. You're enjoying your time on the planet, which is what
Yeah.
we are here to do. We're not trying to wait to get off it. So I just want to say thank you for just your candidness, for your honesty, for being open. And yeah, I appreciate your journey, Jeric. Seriously.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me come on and share my story. This is the first time since I deconstructed that I actually was able to share my story and not do it like I didn't do it on my podcast. So why would I? So I was able to actually share it.
Well, I'm really, really glad. I'm just thankful. So know that you're supported, okay, Jeric?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
for
for having
being
me on
here.
here. You too.